That's James's dinner for today.
It looks awesome.
Some pineapple, some cabbage juice. I'm going to talk about the Doomsday Key, and then I guess we'll just fill it up with whatever.
Yeah, with whatever. Here's it's a volume that's way too short, way too thin. The Crimes of Stalin. I've actually introduced people to it before I finished it. And here's the crimes. No, it's not the crimes of Batman. He's shutting down crime. Where is he now? You know, I wish there were a Batman to take care of Putin. And here's another criminal, although a lot of Fogoshi's just love this guy. The essential Trotsky. You know, the essential Trotsky would be nothing. You know, like it's just garbage.
Well, when James was first wanting to date me, he'd ask me, because I'd say, I'm pretty left-wing. I'm more left-wing than most people. And I would say communist maybe, but not communist as far as communist movements have been.
Maybe more like a Marxist or something like that, I think is what you were. Sort of.
Yeah, but not even really so much. That's just the closest I can come to is maybe Marxist. But because I definitely agree with the idea that the only kind of true social kind of society, socialism, will come out of capitalism. I don't think there's any way to do it otherwise.
And that's a Marxist formulation.
Yeah, so that I agree with. And the fact that there's been a whole bunch of dictators who have decided to market themselves as communists since then, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they didn't even go through the capitalism stage, and they're just like trying to shoot through to
Russia had barely started.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So anyway, but James would ask me, well, if you agree with communism, like who do you like more, Lenin or Mao? And I'd say, well, Lenin or Mao, and he'd go through all these things with me because it was very hard for him. Anyway.
Lenin is preferable, but he was a horrible person. Barely a person, really. But, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Doomsday Key. I wasn't finding the book interesting until page 176. Now I want to look up Newgrange, the
publisher?
No, the 3200 BC thing. Anyway, the kind of Stonehenge-y stuff. Anyway. The story seems to be a lost wanderer. The author seems to be interested in a few topics that made him decide to put them together in a story, even though the ideas don't seem to fit together. Genetic modification was never about increasing yield. Never! It was always about patents and profit. That's it. It's not about increasing yield. It never was. And it isn't still. The author should research more on the subject and should not have bothered to include it in this book. I had heard something about the Starlink corn scandal. I didn't know that the government had bought up Kellogg stocks to keep the company running. I didn't know that the taxpayers had to pay billions because of the genetic modification contamination.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2000 or something. It was a long time ago anyway. I do like where the author seems to be going with the belly mushrooms. That was cool. The test crops grown near starving people is interesting to consider, that the researchers of the crops were actually hoping to do free human trials on people that were stealing corn. If you consider that such things are possible, why not consider that Starlink may have not made it into Kellogg's products by accident? The public has had allergic reactions from it. Their bodies detected that they'd eaten something that wasn't food. Results of a human trial, right? In Europe and Japan, I think they still do, operate according to the precautionary principle. In America, scientists do not follow the precautionary principle. It has been said by many, including myself, that the people of America are the test subjects for products entering the global market. I found the Black Madonna and Egyptian connection interesting. I don't believe it, however. The Egyptians weren't black. Perhaps the Egyptians would seem black to fair-skinned people who hadn't come across black people. The people in India were also good at agriculture and had darker skin. The author's notes were far more interesting than the author's novel. I will read his suggested books. The novel was just an action-adventure novel with a few unrelated, interesting facts, loosely strung together in a failed attempt to make a story. I don't know why the author is a NYT BSer.
New York Times bestseller, right?
Yeah. Just wasn't that good. I mean, he has a doctorate in veterinary sciences, which is interesting. And no, I'm not eating salmon. This is for a little somebody who doesn't even want to stay in my
she'd be eager about the salmon, I think.
She knows.
Yeah.
And the other dogs in the house, they'll get some too.
So, Angel, can you look at the camera there? This is Angel here.
Angel.
Sometimes she behaves like her name.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's a little demon. But she is part Chihuahua, after all.
Yeah.
You figure out part Italian Greyhound.
So you can go on and talk about whatever you were going to talk about. Oh, we were going to talk about what Matt Galloway was saying, weren't we?
Okay.
We were listening to the radio.
So what was he
on the way to our hike, or on some time today, and
my memory's somewhat charitable towards him. But go ahead, refresh my memory.
Well, he was talking about how, he was interviewing people, and that he wanted to interview, and the gist of it was give the migrant workers all like citizenship and healthcare and stuff like that, so that because we need them.
And bring in more.
Bring in more. Just an unlimited supply. Just keep bringing them in. Give them all citizenship and healthcare.
All the accoutrements.
Everyone who wants to come in and do migrant labor. So you can build up a slave state. Really. I mean, because the more unskilled, uneducated people you bring in to do jobs that require no skill, then there's more competition for those jobs that require no skill. So what happens to the wage for the job? Exactly.
All wages.
All wages.
So globalist capitalists, which are really what capitalists are, not the Donald Trump then, they love migrant workers. They love bringing in people, unskilled labor. They love it because they help use it to bust unions down. And the thing about unions is they'll make all sorts of mistakes, stuff like that, but particularly ones that are public enterprise unions. They tend to be irresponsible.
So what's the solution?
Yeah.
Don't have migrant labor jobs. Mm-hmm. Pay a good wage. Pay the wage that you need to attract your citizens to do the work. There's actually unemployment in Canada.
So
why would you bring more people in?
That's insane.
You know that in the free market, wages will be determined by what they're worth. So if you have
supply and demand.
Supply and demand. So if you have
if you are demanding labor, you have to get your products.
Exactly. So you're just going to have to pay more.
And the supply is low.
Yep.
You got to pay more.
So anybody who says, our own citizens, they won't do that work. They won't do it for $2 an hour. Mm-hmm. But if you pay them $20 an hour, they're going to do it. Maybe even if you pay them $8 an hour, who knows? You find out by running a fair business, by running a fair economy.
You get all sorts of Fogoshi saying, hey man, who's going to pick your lettuce? If you don't have migrant labor.
James did
You
it.
benefit from it. You benefit. We don't benefit one iota from a bunch of capitalist farmers.
No.
The big industrial strength farmers, like down in the United
the ones
States
that are
like
hiring migrant laborers.
Yeah. We don't benefit one iota.
No. They just
that
pay
goes to
themselves
their
a bigger
own bottom
wage.
line.
They end up being high-paid CEOs of their business. That's all. So we don't benefit.
So learn a little economics. Starting with you, Matt Galloway. Brat Galloway, as I call you. Learn a little economics. You're such fools. I know what you really want, Matt.
What happens is it becomes even more space between the high-income people and the low-income people. That's what happens with letting a whole bunch of unskilled people in to do migrant labor and giving them citizenship.
So what you really want, Matt, is to, and particularly the professors who spout the kind of stuff that you espouse.
That was good time, hey Angel? She ate a lot of salmon just then.
Is you want lower class white folks.
Oh, here's another piece. You missed some.
To be overwhelmed.
A lot of food.
In the population by people from elsewhere. Muslims, people from south of the border down Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, etc. El Salvador. But, of course, you guys in your patronizing fashion imagine yourselves as still being the boss. It's just working class people, white people, are going to be dispossessed.
Yeah. I think, Matt Galloway, why don't you go become a migrant laborer for the summer and give up your job to somebody else. That's a great idea.
I think it's an awesome idea. You hear that, Matt? Because you're not serving the interests of democracy. You're not serving the interests of the people who pay your wages. You're serving the interests, you claim, of people of color around the world. Of course,
but
you're like Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse has given a PhD to Angela Davis and stuff like that. But it's well understood Herbert Marcuse was a Marxist. That he'd be in the saddle. Come on, you slaves. You're our foot soldiers, you people of color. We're going to drive the white people who are not the Brahmins into extinction, really.
Yeah, but
working
the
class
Matt Galloways of this world, they're not even helping themselves.
No, they aren't, because, hey, dude.
As smart as he may think he is.
Yeah. What do you got, Matt? You even got a master's? Jeez. You might even have a PhD. You're absolutely useless. What's going to happen is you let the average Muslim in, so people that believe in Sharia law, you let enough gangsters in from, I'm hoping it's a vast minority of people coming south of the border, but even so, you let in enough gangsters, small minority of the population just takes over everything. You're not going to last well. I can just see you. Come on now, you gangsters. Hey, like, buckle under. Don't get uppity with me here.
I'm on your side.
Yeah, I'm a person in uncolor, but I support people of color and stuff like that. Hey, they just slap you around, slap you silly. I don't think they'd even bother killing you, you stupid idiot. The same sort of thing with Muslims. Hey, man, I know you're tolerant religion. I know you got this long history of peace and love and flowers. Well, maybe not the flowers, but yeah. Hey, man, like, what are you doing there? You know, like, don't go raping women, all this sort of stuff. Hey, dude. You know, you look at the world today, and the places where the
Did you want to come up here again?
Huge. They'll go through lists of it on CBC of the places. They'll say Yemen. They'll say northern Nigeria, Mali, Syria, Ethiopia, the Tigray region, Ukraine, the Uyghur area in China, and Rohingya in Burma. And they'll say, oh, it's awful, you know, and they will not point out, well, what they'll be saying will be causing these crises, refugee crises. Oh, it's climate catastrophe and it's capitalist exploitation. Okay. Let's look at the commonalities. Now, I'm not sure exactly. Burma on one side of it, it's Muslims, the Rohingya. And theoretically, they're not causing the problem. But they've got a long history there of they're invaders, settler colonialists, and they've actually been slavers there. They're the ones who are getting thumped, and they shouldn't be thumped. But people should understand what their long-term role is in that area. Now, I'm not sure if the Burmese military guys are communists, so that might be the exception. But all of the other cases, every one of them that I mentioned, they're communists or Muslims or both causing the problems. Communists or Muslims or both causing the problems. The refugee problems has nothing to do with capitalism and nothing to do with the climate crisis or catastrophe or whatever. So don't start handing me that faux gauchist garbage, especially about it being caused by capitalist exploitation. You look at the, Live Aid. What were they reacting to? To famine in Ethiopia. Wow. Now Bob Geldof, who wasn't that bright, was bright enough to realize who he should be talking to. He collared, I don't think physically, but collared Gorbachev, who was in power then, and he said, hey Gorby, he might have even said, hey Gorby, why, we know what's causing the famine. Well, most people didn't. We know what's causing the famine there. It's you commies there messing around and causing war and stuff like that. And Gorby didn't do anything about it. He's got way too good press. That idiot. Better than Putin, the guy is in the cat's bird seat right now. But yeah, like he still kept on fighting in Afghanistan, still kept on fighting in Ethiopia. So back then, Live Aid, what they were really, they should have been saying, here he's negotiating with Gorby behind the scenes, but they should have been, get the commies out of Ethiopia. That's what they should have been instead of, hey, we are the world, we are the whatever. They should have been saying, commies get out, commies get out. You're the one who's causing the famine. Commies have been causing famine for over 100 years. Check your freaking history out. And not the potted history that you get from commie and commie synthesizing prophets. What's that, bird?
Yeah, different. I don't know what kind.
I got scared when I looked. This one here or this one
that
up there?
That one there.
Okay, that one.
Kind of big.
A little bit bigger than the ones we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
I hope that they don't drive the small ones away. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I put out, as you can see, I was putting the food in the feeder, and then they like it in the feeder, and they were emptying it out so fast. I was feeding them so much. And then I put it on the rail because they liked it the most on the rail. Yeah. And then they were knocking so much of it down, though, that I got tired of that. So I put it here, and they don't knock much down from here. And they will eat it. They don't like it eating it from there as much, but they've been eating it. And at first I had a number of different birds, and then all of a sudden I just had sparrows. Just house sparrows. He chased the black-capped chickadees away.
I think they were monopolizing.
Yeah. They decided to that I was their territory. So I was good at making sure there was lots of food.
Do you want to be on camera, Opie?
He wants your salmon, but he doesn't realize your salmon's already gone. Your guys' salmon is in the oven still.
But so, they're being pretty good dogs. They're not ramping up on
you were going to talk about one of these books, yeah?
Yeah, maybe. So what will I talk about? So this is a warning. All you Fogoshies out there, there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth when I start reviewing this. I've only got through maybe a quarter of it. Yeah, about a quarter of it. No. So just get ready. The Essential Trotsky. Highly, way too long. That's all we got to say. So I think there are three different things. One thing is an account of the Russian Revolution, another Lessons of October, and Stalin falsifies history. That's why I brought it out here. Oh my God! Hey Trotsky, you falsified history too, you stupid idiot. I think he's the one who came up with that line. Go and throw yourself on the rubbish heap of history. You know, this really belongs there, but I don't chuck stuff out. So here's something that I just finished the other day. I've introduced you folks up there to it already, but I hadn't quite finished. I hadn't finished up the last 3 or so.
You said
pages.
It was mostly a picture book, but
it's mostly a picture book. Yeah, you remember that. So there's some amazing pictures in here.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites is Stan Mikita playing a Lennon. A bit of a bone.
Oh, sorry about that. I tried to get them all out of there.
Yeah, most of them.
You still have 7 minutes.
There we go. So here's a Iron Felix. Felix means happy. Well, he was happy when he's killing people. The head of the Cheka. Yeah. Dzerzhinsky. Horrible person. Polish noble who ended up being the first. Yeah. See, here's the quote they have as the cut line for the photo. Dzerzhinsky didn't beat about the bush. Round up people who understand there's nothing more effective than a bullet in the head to shut people up. So he's not talking about rounding them up to arrest them, round them up to form a posse or a gang or something like that. So just round up all the most resolute people is actually the full quote. Who understand that there's nothing more effective than a bullet in the head to shut people up. So yeah. So much for free speech, eh? Torture was now legalized and firing squads were commonplace. This is under Felix Dzerzhinsky. Live incineration was used. Pauline doesn't like hearing these sorts of things, but it happened. And people were drowned after being flung from barges, or else simply hacked to bits. Sounds a bit like Rwanda, eh? So that's under Lenin. This guy barely survived into Stalin's administration. Stalin took over 24, and Flunky died in 26. So he was doing this stuff under Lenin. So... But here's some quotes from these flunkies. This is basically before Stalin took over. Lenin then created the All-Russian Extraordinary Commission for Combating Counter-Revolution and Sabotage. You will mispronounce it, I'm sure, out there as the Cheka. It's Cheka. I'm still mispronouncing it, but there you go. Cheka. His own, that's Lenin, his own all-powerful secret police force. So who headed it? Iron Felix Dzerzhinsky. He was a critter of Lenin. Some people asked him, that's Lenin, why, in that case, the government needed the People's Commissariat for Justice. So he creates the Cheka. Why do you need a Commissariat for Justice? Wouldn't it be better to have an honestly named Commissariat of Annihilation? Here's Lenin's answer. That's exactly how it's going to be. Lenin replied, we are engaged in annihilation. Not much worry about democracy. He insisted that everything would be smashed to pieces, and he loved using that word that's translated in English as smash. And he demanded more hangings and shootings. If we can't shoot White Guard saboteurs, and saboteurs anyone they basically didn't like, the term it's often translated as wreckers, saboteurs. What kind of revolution is this? If we can't shoot White Guard saboteurs, what kind of revolution is this? There's not much talk about due process or anything like that. You just capture them and shoot them. So, what kind of a revolution is this? If we can't shoot White Guard saboteurs, what kind of a revolution is this? He said, nothing but talk and a bowl of mush. And he berated his comrades for not being tough enough. But Trotsky and Stalin, both of them, they were extremely tough. You hear that, all you Trotskyites out there? I've got your number. I know what you'd like, you scumbugs. So here's
the only way that communism works is with passive people. Passive people are working together, and no aggressive people are part of their system.
You shut the aggressive people out. So here's an aggressive person talking. So you hear this, all you Trotskyites? We must put an end once and for all to the Papist Quaker, so Papist is Catholic, right? Papist Quaker babble about the sanctity of human life. You know, like, it's not babble actually to talk about the sanctity of human life. Trotsky said, that's Trotsky, okay? We must put an end once and for all to the Papist Quaker babble about the sanctity of human life. Trotsky said, and when he heard that the Estonian Bolsheviks were proposing to round up traitors and liquidate them, he said, the idea of a concentration camp is excellent. That's Trotsky, all you Trotskyites. I made a joke to the guy who teaches the history of the Soviet Union out at the university. I said, I shouldn't have given it away as a joke. I said, what is the proper term? Trotskyite, Trotskyist, or terrorist? And he had a little chuckle. And because I didn't present it as being a joke.
Well, and it is funny that he was talking about the Quakers. I mean, if you think about it, there are actually some socialist movements that are largely Pacific.
I think generally before Marx they worked
fairly well.
But Marx, this is Marx, not Lenin. Marx characterized them as utopian social. What Marxism is, since then, has been dystopian socialism. In other words, in order to get rid of the state, that's the military and the police, more than anything else, you've got to use the state. In other words, your own military and police, or militia and police.